Welcome back to Beyond the Pump, where we help coaches coach better because we talk about the business of fitness and nutrition. And today we are going to teach you all about every single thing you need to know about building programs that's going to absolutely get your clients jacked, shredded, and every single thing in between. We're totally lying. It's not this easy, but we are going to chat for the next 15 to 20 minutes around some of the key principles that you might want to deploy in the programming for your clients that have some aspirations of being better. Well, so programming is a big thing, right? Now, hey, if you're listening in and you're not a coach, you're like, all right, I want to put a program together for myself. You got a couple of things to think about. And I'm gonna throw this out there. Andrew, when it comes to programming, is extremely complicated in the least simplistic way possible. He was my coach for like 3 years. I never really did the same workout whatsoever. I learned a lot of what I know today because of, learning through Andrew. Now I did have, I don't know, 10 years of personal training experience prior to. I do have the internet and, Chat GPT and Claude and all those guys also. And they're great because when you're like, hey, get me jacked, it gives you a great program. But it doesn't know anything on any context. And that's the big thing, right? That is the big thing of understanding the programming and where you're coming from. So Andrew, I'm gonna ask this question. If we're gonna start to build a program for somebody, what would you say is like, hey, big step number one? And I'm not saying like, oh, what's the goal of the program or whatever the thing might be, but like where's the basis? Like, what's the big thing that we need to start building a program off of? What's the foundation thing that we need to be thinking about? What needs to be answered first?
This actually changed a lot for me across the last 10 years. At one point, I would say it was capacity testing. What can they do? And then I would say it's biomechanical testing, which is how they move. And now recently, I'd say it's probably more personality testing than anything because the person's going to be in the way of the program. And it happens more often than not. You get the perfect program, you get terrible compliance because the person just has a lot of weird stuff juggling around. But do you want this to be a physiological kind of like that kind of program? Or do you want this to be like a comprehensive, holistic type of programming jacked? And it's
I think let's talk more physical based, like, hey, I
okay.
want to elicit a reaction with my body, and foundationally I want to go and for the next period of time get my body to change based upon the fitness routine I deploy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's, a lot of people when they see an Olympic athlete, and this always happens, Michael Phelps, when he won all those gold medals, everyone was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I want some clout like that. I want to be as held in high esteem. Let me do what Michael Phelps is doing. If he did it, how hard could it be? Buddy, I don't know if anyone's ever swam 20,000 yards that I know. That's crazy. Like every day, this is wild. But people will sit there and they try to do the thing that that person's doing in that instance. In this case, they're like, what did Michael Phelps do for the last 6 months leading into the Olympics? You don't want to do that program, buddy. You're not going to be ready for it. The same way that, Ronnie Coleman is squatting 700 pounds and someone's like, wow, I want to look like a bodybuilder. I'm going to slap 700. Your spine will snap in half, boy. You better stop that. And so I think it's important to understand, and I think it's Sean Covey, start with the end in mind, the 7 highly effective habits. Wherever you want to start, you kind of then backwards plan from there. And you figure out like, okay, cool. I want to be in a bodybuilding show. Where do I want to do? What's the halfway point to that? And then where am I today? And that gives you a lot better of a trajectory. But if you're shooting a bow and arrow and your eyes are closed, like you got nowhere. Like, oh man, that's going to be bad for everybody. So you got to know where you are today. You have to have an understanding, generally speaking, of where you want to go in the future. And most people will have the future in mind and say, I want that goal. And then they'll just start running in a direction. And so understanding where you are today would be like an intermediate level understanding that you might have a fair chance. But this is where most people fall off the wagon, is that they have no idea the obstacles that are likely to come up along the way. So as soon as they get derailed, they completely unravel because one cheat night or one cheat meal, and we see this a lot in the New Year's resolutioner population, as soon as they fall off the wagon, it's, what's the point? I'll just do it one more day because that's a more familiar behavioral pattern. And so when it comes down to, immediate result, if you do something like a really grueling workout and your body doesn't change significantly and you have more pain, hearkening back to a previous episode where we talked about risk and reward in that peptide rant, right? And if you're not subscribed, make sure you go and dig that one up. But risk and reward. So now you have a high risk because you're in pain and you have no reward immediately. What would cause someone to want to continue to do that? Nothing. So understanding where you are today and creating graded exposure, incremental additional stressors that take you and make you do a little bit more than what you did the last time is the best way to cause long-term growth. There's something called periodization. And this is in the sport literature. I think it's probably been around for over 100 years at this point. But people have been sequencing training for a very long time. And when it comes to knowing when to stress what, if you squat every day or if you run every day, you're going to get really good at that thing really quickly. But what'll happen as you continue to go up, you'll start to see a diminishing return. So the principle of diminishing returns is literally a training principle. The more you do, the more you have to do for an incremental gain, meaning not much. So you have to start to weigh it out. What are the other things that you have to give up along the way? So when we think about like being jacked, I assume that you're referencing more muscle tissue, Steve. Are you referencing like body recomp? Like what? Let's talk about that for a second. How do you
Let's
define jacked? Is that
let's say
toned?
let's say you look more muscular and lean. So
Okay.
some form of adding additional muscle tissue, potentially reducing body fat. But the ratio of those two goes in your favor, whether
Okay.
one stays the same and it goes, or the other one decreases and that stays the same.
So roughly what we're talking about is gaintaining or, recomping, depends on what research and social circle you're in. They're kind of the same thing. Interestingly enough, what we know is that when you are in a significant surplus and, this kind of, I think in the last couple of years here, been a little bit more prominent, but people used to think that if you want to get bigger, you have to consume more, right? And that would make logical sense. But we did find is that I think we're more than 50 to 100 calories above, AKA being in a surplus above your maintenance calories, most of that then was just, contributed directly to fat mass accumulation. And so when we look at if you want to minimize fat accretion, but you want to get bigger, that's where you kind of have to thread the needle. And this is why when it comes to the nutritional aspect of this, eating your maintenance calories while training hard as hell is probably one of the most effective long-term strategies. Fuel your body for your activity, and your body will then perform the activity, which means it's going to adapt to that activity physiologically, structurally, and that's usually where people find that they're pretty content. Now, if you want to lose a little bit of body fat while you're doing that, there's a $1 peptide course that I'm familiar with. I'm just kidding. Don't ever fucking do that. That man is a fucking plague. Anyways, when it comes to losing body fat, we know that the research is pretty clear and obviously like lived experience. You have to eat less than what your body is needing in order to pull for your body to go in as little fat cells and use what it has, right? Kind of like going into your savings account to help you pay your bills, right? Your body fat's kind of like a savings account for energy. And so that'll cause your fat cells to shrink. So what we have is a diametrically opposed paradigm when people say they want to get jacked. They want to build muscle and lose fat, which is usually what most people want, really. You can do whatever you want. Usually it's just more challenging to do it all at the same time. If you are doing the gaintaining process and you're newer to training, you can probably get away with that. Recomposition does happen significantly higher rates for more of the novice level lifters and trainees. What we find is that the more adapted you get, and we generally consider someone intermediate level, when they start to get into like the 3 years of consistent training, maybe to like the 5, and most people won't really go beyond that because it just requires like a little bit of a craziness and, a bit of an autism level of focus to continue to want to get better at squatting for like 5 to 10 years of your life. Raise my hand. Where my people at? Yeah. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if that's you. Or I'll just feel weird as fuck that I shared that. Now I feel strange. But, you have to do more to get more. And so you have to eat less to get less fat. And so how do you do these things without having all this stuff happen. That's where when we talk about getting jacked or recomping, usually somewhere around your maintenance calories, lifting, I'd say like at least 4 days a week, no more than five. I would say as you're an intermediate level lifter, because again, anything will work when you're a novice. We don't really care about those populations as much. We care about when people have been doing it for a while, they're getting frustrated, things aren't moving. What do we want to do? How do we continue to get jacked? AKA building muscle while losing fat. This is where you're going to have to get a little more precise with your training loading on top of maintaining kind of that gaintaining TDEE, maintenance calories, cool, accommodate your training load, take some rest days because now you're actually training hard enough to really do some meaningful damage to your systems. And then you want to start to vary the stressors. You can't just go in there and do 3 sets of fucking 10 all
But
the
when you
time.
say when you say rest days, you mean a couple of days throughout the period, not per week, right? Like once a week is fine.
You know, the Russians did an experiment on monkeys. They did these monkeys and they did high volume monkeys and low volume monkeys. And they found that I think it was like the high volume monkeys had a commensurate increase. And I actually don't really remember the study as I talk about it. I just remember the study being in general in favor of there being different levels of adaptation based upon volume exposure. Now, and I've kind of gone back and forth on this myself because I do tend to train a lot of newer people. And because of that, I tend to go more off of an RPE because when you think about programming this stuff, when we kind of move off of nutrition, hey, eat your maintenance calories, train hard is the suggestion there, right? Maybe drop it down, not even maybe like 5-10% if you wanted to do a little bit of a cut just to prevent extra body fat accumulation. Not a terrible idea, but your strength and other things will probably go down a smidge, or they definitely won't go up. So you're not necessarily you're giving up opportunity costs in strength adaptation, and strength adaptation causes more mechanical loading, more mechanical stress. More mechanical stress causes more muscle accretion. So you're giving up literally being able to build some bigger muscles or stronger muscles that, cross section wise will eventually become bigger, but it's just kind of a mixed bag on that one. So, but when it comes to program design, I roughly equate it to this for most people when they're sitting across from in a consultation. If you want to stay where you are, lift twice a week, train twice a week. All right. If you want to improve it a little bit, kind of like a mild pace, 3 times a week. If you want to do a little bit more moderate, 4 times a week. 5 days a week is kind of the maximum recoverable volume for most people that are actually training hard. And yep, I know. Yeah.
You're talking about lifting.
You could, and that's a
Yeah.
good question, actually. This is a really good question because when we talk about getting jacked, we usually are referencing causing like musculoskeletal stress, not necessarily cardiorespiratory stress. Cardiorespiratory stress is a good foundational tolerance, though, because your aerobic system will dictate how quickly you can recover. And so when people are poorly they're just out of shape, so to speak, they're going to take longer, AKA their maximum recoverable volume goes down. So it might be a backward step to suggest that people do cardio up front to increase their ability to tolerate more work. But we know more work is the quintessential element, it's traditionally load, right? But in order to tolerate more load, more exposure to more load, you have to be able to tolerate that constant recurring. Otherwise, you'll just drive your system into the ground. And there's something called overreaching, which is helpful. And that's what we call functional overreaching, is that where you do a little bit too much and your body needs some time to recover so it can get better than the stress you impose on it. But when we get into overtraining, this is where now you start to get burnt out. You don't want to have sex. You're just depressed. You're sad all the time. Like, guys, don't over caffeinate through that. That's one of the fastest ways to kill your gains in the long run. That's how you turn into, like the dad bod, so to speak, where you lifted in college and in high school. But then when you're in your 40s and 50s, you have now atherosclerotic risk because now you just don't do anything because you're so burnt out of it. It should be something you enjoy. But, I would say the FIT principle, FITT, frequency, intensity, time, type, that's a really good way of creating a template for yourself. What's the frequency of squatting? Like if you want to have a heavier squat, how frequent do you need to do that? Every time you put that in there, you have to give up something else though. So if you wanted to do a marathon, that means you better run a lot, right? In different styles and different time frames and different speeds and tempos and whatnot. But that means that you can't probably squat as frequently because now you're having to allocate more time to running, right? Same thing goes the other way. If you're a marathoner, but you want to compete in a powerlifting competition. You're going to have to give up some of your time doing that. So there's always this finite resource and conversation in the background that most people just don't really consider, is that you have to be comfortable giving up something or at least maintaining it. And that's where we start to get into, well, I don't want to lose my cardiovascular capacity, or I don't want to lose my squat and my leg gains. Okay, great. So that means that now you're going to have to find a creative way to start to stack these demands, so at least you don't go backwards while you're building something else up. And that is why periodization is so important, because you can have everything you want, but you just can't have it all at the same time. And to have like the perfect human training principle, program, like frankly, that would be like a 10-year build for most people. And I don't know anyone that's doing a 10-year long program, but
So I'm just gonna say here, for $1, I'll give you my 9 workouts split a week that I'm running, and it's going to make me jacked. So forget everything Andrew just said. $1, you'll get everything you need.
we'll do it for 97 cents actually, right, Steve?
Yeah, we'll undercut it. We'll
Undercut him.
undercut it.
Yeah. 3%. We'll give you a 3%. We'll give you a 10% discount.
We will.
We'll give you a 10% discount. And we'll give you access to our school community.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Also
yeah. So
good.
If you're not a part of that, we do have daily research articles that get posted there. Like there's a ton of great value. So you're definitely going to want to get in there. Frankly, we care about the truthfulness of our sources. So, womp womp. That's all I got for you. You got to lift a lot. You got to eat a lot relative to your capacity and tolerance. Do more than you did last time.
There you have it. Some ways to think about your programming. And I know you thought we were going to talk about the best exercises to make your quads pop, but we're not.
Goblet cyclist squats. There you go.
More about the functional, fundamental, underlying foundation of your programming is going to actually get you there. But seriously, like, if you're listening, just take it from somebody who's gone on like a, I don't know, 20-year fitness journey, but also like actually honed shit in over the past 4 years. The most productive time in my life of actually getting shit done has been the past 4 years, and probably really the past 2.5, because I finally decided to listen to Andrew, not resist and everything there. So that's really been the best thing. But like, everybody wants it now, and in favor of getting it now, you're sacrificing so much later that if you can slow down a smidge and like get that underlying foundational, like the periodization of it truly dialed in. Like I'm not joking. I'm doing 9 workouts a week right now, 1 day off, and I'm on day 5 and I'm tired. I'm like, man, fuck this. Like, this sucks. I'm planning to do it for 4, maybe up to 6 weeks, but it's really meant to be just a phase to like push performance. But when it's time to not do that anymore, I got to get out of it. And I'm coming off of a phase where I lifted twice and did jujitsu twice. So it's like, it was intentional, and it is intentional. It's a lot of load already. I never dread the idea of working out tomorrow, ever. I have 2 workouts tomorrow, and I'm dreading it. And I'm like, man, that's going to suck. So, but I get to rest and eat some food and like recover and all the components, and it's going to be great. And I'll see how I feel, how Sunday treats me, and do all the things, but it's designed around intention. Am I doing the best way possible? Probably not. Am I doing the worst way possible? Also probably not. But it's what's kind of working, and just diving and learning and growing and doing the thing. So,
yeah, just so everyone's aware, the normal recommendation for increasing load weeklies and monthlies is a 10 to 30% increase. It's not to one double it plus 20. It's at what, 2.25%. 225% of the volume. Yeah. Yeah, whatever.
Confused at why you're confused.
I'm not confused. I was just doing the math.
The wild thing. So it's funny. Whoop. I've had an on and off relationship with Whoop for a long time, and it's like, I no longer like do things with it. I don't take the info I learn and like apply it. Like, it's irrelevant at this point in time. Then they came out with like their pace of aging and just all of this stuff, and I was like, I want to make sure I'm aging well and blah blah blah. And I've been wearing it, and it's like keeps telling me like, oh, your pace of aging is 2x, and I'm like, man, what's going on? And it just hasn't been great. But the funny thing is, I never started any of my workouts. It never tracked anything it was just on my wrist for when I could, but like jujitsu, I didn't wear it, and just
Mhm.
all this stuff. And they recently came out with the update where it now tracks your strength workouts as well,
Yeah, I
and
haven't
gives some
checked that
load
out
based upon
actually.
that.
Hmm.
So with everything all in, literally in 1 week of changing everything, I went from nearly a two, or not literally 1 week, excuse me. This has been over the past 4 weeks, but I can only imagine what's going to happen this week. I went from nearly a 2 times rate of aging to now like zero point 0.8. And my actual age, whoop age versus biological age is now decreasing. And it's hysterical how much, because I never tracked jujitsu. It never gave me any value in my strength routine. So I never did it there. But now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, let me just track everything because I have this thing. And now it's like, oh, you actually worked out today. I'm like, no, bitch, I've worked out all the time. You just didn't track it. So it's interesting to see that. But like today, I'm barely hanging in the yellow of recovery, and I can just feel myself like, man, I'm tired. So, we'll see. I also stayed up too late last night, so that doesn't help. 2 nights in a row, actually.
Yeah. Well, and this is actually, a good point to the audience of like, how do you know when it's too much? You'll usually feel unwell, and when it starts to impact your mood, we find training desire to be a decent kind of litmus. But if more than half of your days you dread training, you need to probably do a little bit of a deload and a pullback, because if you keep digging into that, you get further into that functional overreaching. When your performance starts to degrade, that's usually when you're going to need to take a little bit longer. So sometimes they're good prophylactically. Premeditated deloads, I don't really, the research is kind of a little more strong on that, of you don't necessarily need to do that. You should definitely listen to your body and look at your performance. But if you're just starting to feel depressed and like a little, down the street versus across the roadie, you probably should A, go get mental help, and B, take a chill pill. Go on a
Dig
walk
in
instead.
harder. Go harder and push by 225%. Damn it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just support your friends.
Yeah,
You just
exactly.
support them. You love them. You say, I'm here for you, and I love that for you.
All right, gang. We appreciate you listening in today. Hopefully, this was helpful. Think about that programming. Think about that periodizing. That's going to be one of the biggest game changers for sure. And of course, stack those standing bicep curls in there, because those are the best thing that you can do to get your arms jacked.
If you don't believe it,
Appreciate
just
you.
do one side.
Yeah, just one side.
Just one side.
For the next 3 years, and you'll see.
There are people that do that. They're on social media. This guy that just does one shoulder trap shrugs. Dude, it's like gnarly. So
I'm not down. I don't need a spinal issue just because I felt like proving a point on social media. So we appreciate you listening to Beyond a Pump, where we break down the business of fitness and nutrition. If you got any questions, throw them down below. Subscribe to the channel, like the episode. Let's have some fun and see what your favorite exercise is. Later, gang.
peace.